Hello and welcome back to math class. You noticed on your screen we're going to move on to lesson 18. I hope that most of you understood the divisibility rules and were able to get your assignment completed. Today we're going to look at something called the least common multiple and the greatest common factor. That's what lesson 18 is, but I want to just concentrate on this today. Least common multiple. And then next week we are going to move on to greatest common factor. Least common multiple sometimes will be kind of shortened like this, the LCM. Okay. Now if you go down here, it says what is the least common multiple? The least common multiple of two non-zero numbers A and B, where you write LCM, A and B, is the least whole number larger than 0, which is a multiple of both A and B. Okay, a little confusing because they used variables instead of numbers, but we're going to actually look at what the least common multiple is today. If you happen to have a multiplication chart, which some of you I know took home, the one I have looks something similar to this, so I have my multiplication table. If you have one of these, this will be helpful for today. We're actually going to go ahead and turn over to page S76. We're not going to do anything on S75 today. Okay, in order to find the least common multiple, we are going to look at two numbers. Okay, the first two we're going to look at today are 12 and 18. Some of you know your multiplication facts, so this will be pretty simple for you. Some of you will need that multiplication chart. So in order to find the least common multiple of 12 and 18, we have to look at each number separately. So we're going to look at the 12 first, and we're going to list all the multiples of 12. The directions here ask us to write the first 10 multiples of 12. So what we're going to look at is give a multiplication chart. We're going to come down here and find the 12s, and we're going to list the first 10. Okay, so we're basically counting by 12s. All right, so we know that 12 times 1 is 12. 12 times 2 is 24. 12 times 3, 12 times 4. Okay, so we're counting by 12s. So it says we need the first 10. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So if you notice, we're counting by 12s 10 times. Okay, so far pretty easy. Multiples of 12. The next number says now we're going to do the multiples of 18. We're going to list 10 of them as well. Okay, so we're going to start with 18. 18 times 1 is 18. 18 times 2 is 36. Times 3 is 54. So all I'm doing is I'm adding 18, adding 18, adding 18. 10 times. All right, let's check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. Now, if you don't have a multiplication chart like this, you can find some online very easily, and it might kind of help you when you have to find multiples of numbers, especially when they get large like 18. All right, so we have here the multiples of 12 and the multiples of 18. Well, if you notice, the directions say least common multiple. Well, we did the multiple part. We listed all the multiples. Now we want to find the common factors. Common means what do they have alike? Well, if I look at this carefully, I can see that we have 36. That's the same. I see that we have 72. And we have 108. Okay, I think those are the only ones that I see that shows the things that they have in common. Now we want to be able to find out what is the least number. Least means the smallest number. What is the smallest number that they have in common? Well, we circled all the multiples up here on both lists. Now we're going to put a rectangle around the least. Well, there's only one number. We have to pick one number. And if you notice here, the smallest number we have is 36. So we're going to go ahead and put a rectangle around this. So we could come up here and say the least common multiple of 12 and 18. We could say that the least common multiple we found out is 36. Okay, so 3 things we had to do. We had to list the multiples of the number. Second thing we had to do is we had to find the things that they had in common. And the last thing is we had to tell you which one was the least, which one was the smallest. All right, if you notice, we're going to actually flip over. We're not going to do S76 either. We're not going to do greatest common factor. And we're actually going to turn all the way over to page S78. All right, so the directions say to choose one of these problems that have not been solved, but we're going to go ahead and do more than that just so we can get a little bit of practice. So the first thing we're going to do is, you notice, we're going to look at the least common multiple of 9 and 12. Remember, the first thing we have to do is we need to list the multiples of the 2 numbers. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put the 9s on this side, and I'm going to put the 12s over here. So let's go ahead and list, just 5 numbers first for the 9. See if that 5's enough. So we'll do 9, 18, 9 times 3 is 27, 9 times 4 is 36, and 9 times 5 is 45. Let's see what happens if we do the 12s. Okay, we're going to count by 12s. 12, 24, 36, 48, and 60. All right, well, let's see. Do we have anything in common? Well, actually, I do see something in common. I see a 36. I don't see anything else, so I know that the least common multiple of 9 and 12 is 36. So I will put here the LCM equals 36. Okay. All right, let's try and do the next one, 8 and 18. So we're going to list the factor or the multiples of 8. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start here. And once again, let's see if we can just do 5, if 5 is enough this time. We'll stop here. So we did 8, 16, 24, 32, 40. And we'll go over here, and now let's list the multiples of 18. 18, 36, 54, 72, and 90. All right, so I listed 5. Let's look. Do we have any numbers in common? If I notice, I don't think I have any numbers in common. And because I don't have any numbers in common, that means I need to continue. But I think before I'm going to continue adding some 18s, I'm already up to 90 over here. Let's see what happens if I continue counting by 8s. We're only at 40. So let's continue counting by 8. So we have here 8 times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8 times 6 is 48. Next one would be 56. So I'm getting closer to that 90, but I'm not quite there. 64. And then I need to go, the next one would be, I'll have to put a little slash here. The next one is 72. Huh. So I finally found the least common multiple. I finally found 72 and 72. So the least common multiple for 8 and 18 is 72. All right, in order to give ourselves a little bit of room, why don't we go ahead and jump down to this one here. We'll scratch this one off. And let's go ahead and list the multiples of 12 and the multiples of 30. $24, 36, 48, 60. Oh, I think that might work because I know my 30s. Because after I count by 30s, the next number is 60. So once I find the least common multiple, I can go ahead and stop because I will notice that they both have 60. So I would say that the least common multiple is 60. Okay, so on a marker or marker board, I want you guys to go ahead and see if you can solve this one for me. 20 and 50. Some of you can actually solve it in your head because you know your multiplication facts. I want to know what the least common multiple for 20 and 50 is. Once you know what it is, go ahead and list here What is the least common multiple? Okay, so I'll give you a second here to do that. All right, well, sometimes what I do when I want to do the least common multiple is I look at my two different numbers, and I like to start with the bigger number, which is 50. And I'll put here 50. The next number, I know that 20 cannot go into 50. 20, 40, 60, 80. So that won't work. After 50, I know comes 100. Can 20 go into that? 20, 40, 60, 80, 100. So I already know that the least common multiple that you should have gotten for 20 and 50 is 100. All right, so make sure when you're doing this, you list your multiples, you find what's in common, and you pick the smallest number. On this page, we just kind of stopped right as soon as we found the least common multiple. All right, let's go down to a couple story problems here. We're going to look at the first one here on hot dogs. Let's go ahead and read problem A. It says hot dogs come packed 10 in a package. Hot dog buns come packed 8 in a package. If you want one hot dog for each bun for a picnic with none left over, what is the least amount of each we need to buy? How many packages of each item would we have to buy? So I'm going to put here HD for hot dogs, and I'm going to put HDB for hot dog buns. All right, I know that hot dogs come 10 in a package, so let's just start counting by multiples of 10. Okay, let's stop there, and let's go ahead and count by the hot dog buns. Hot dog buns come 8 in a package, so we're going to start counting by 8s. And if you notice, we found something in common. So if I would buy exactly 1, 2, 3, 4 hot dogs packages and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hot dog bun packages, I would have exactly 40 and 40. So what is the least amount of each we need to buy? We're going to say 4 packages of hot dogs, put that again, and 5 packages of hot dog buns. Okay, that way we know we have exactly the same amount. All right, let's go ahead and let's jump down to problem C. Problem C says, 2 gears in a machine are lined by a mark drawn from the center of one gear to the center of the other. If the first gear has 24 teeth and the second gear has 40 teeth, how many revolutions of the first gear are needed until the marks line up again? All right, so let's go ahead and put our 24 and our 40. And let's make our list of multiples. So if we count by 24s, after 24 we have 24 times 2 is 48. Plus another 24, 72, 96, 120, 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's see if 5 is enough. Let's go ahead and count by 40s. 40 times 2 would be 80, and 40 times 3 would be 120, and 40 times 4. Oh, some of you already noticed we didn't need to keep going because we have a least common multiple between 24 and 40. So when it says how many revolutions of the first gear are needed until the marks line up again, we notice that the first gear needs 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 revolutions, and the second gear will need 1, 2, 3, where they will align up and have the same. So how many revolutions of the first gear are needed until the marks line up? The first one we're going to say is 5 revolutions. And let's go ahead and list that this one is 3. Okay, all All right, so go ahead and flip your book over. All right, so we're going to actually just kind of cross out the words here on this one since we're only going to deal with LCM today. I know that these are some word problems, but I'm going to give you a practice problem. I would like to know if you can solve what the least common multiple is for 12 and 15. Okay, go ahead and see if you can find the least common multiple for 12 and 15. So I have listed here the multiples for 12, 24, 36, 48, 60, and 72. Now once again, if you're having a hard time knowing where I'm finding that, you can go to a multiplication chart. You can find the 12s and you can list the multiples. Okay, the next one I did is I went to the 15s and I listed the multiples of 15. You will notice 15, 30, 45, 60, and 75. I found that the least common multiple that they have is 60. Oops. Okay, so let's do a simpler one here. What if I asked you to find the least common multiple of 4 and 8? 4 and 8. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to list your multiples of 4. All right, so I listed a bunch this time, and the least common multiples for 8, or I'm sorry, the multiples of 8, 8 times 1, times 2, all right, so I listed a bunch for both. Now, if we look at the things that they have in common, I noticed they have an 8 in common, a 16 in common, a 24, and a 32. But if I want to know what's the least common multiple, okay, you showed me they have lots of things in common. The number we would pick, least means the smallest, so the smallest number you would give me would be the 8. All right, so we're going to stop today with least common multiple, and next week we're going to come back and then we will do what we call the GCF, which is called the greatest common factor. All right, so once you are finished with our lesson, go ahead and fill in your Google form and have a great weekend.